Hello everybody and welcome back to Odin's movie blog. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well. And today, I was originally going to be doing a video and I have all the research ready and done, and the video is going to be coming out at some point about the MCU versus the DCEU, basically breaking down box office numbers, not only the cost of the film, but also how much films made on their investment, etc. Because as I've come to realize over the past several weeks, anytime that you go after a DCEU movie, the DC fanboys come at you, and every time that you even hint at, not even like saying, oh my god, the MCU is failing, and oh my god, it's going to be a huge bomb, etc., etc. Even though I'm not saying those things, if I say anything that even seems to indicate that the DCEU is on the rise and the MCU is on the fall, all of a sudden it's just, you know, MCU fanboys just coming out of the woodwork. And when I say fanboys, obviously that's one, gender inclusive, which is going to be relevant to what we're talking about today. But also, too, when I say that, I'm not saying that, oh, just because you're a fan of this product, that therefore you are a fanboy and therefore you're the people that I'm talking about. No, when I say fanboy, I mean people who cannot accept reality. I'm talking about people that cannot understand that there are different thoughts and different opinions that exist from them, and so therefore any person that presents something, even if they have facts to back it up, even if they have a valid argument, that they will still say no matter what, oh no, you're wrong because I love this property so much and therefore you have no place here. And then they will just get all their friends, and it's just great. I mean, when over a 10-minute period I get several comments that all say the same exact thing from channels that have almost no subscribers, and most of them have no images whatsoever, it makes me wonder, like, I wonder how long these channels have been around for to find all of these things. But it's just amazing. So if you want to check out my video from yesterday, go check it out. It's hilarious to see the fact that I haven't gotten over 100 dislikes on a video in a very long time. Probably the last time was when I was going after, or at least being critical of the fact that, you know, Aquaman might not be the best movie of all time, even though I think, you know, I said, hey, it's gonna make $1 billion, and I think that I would rather go see that over something like a Black Panther or something like that. But at the end of the day, I personally didn't like. Anyway, so speaking of the women, though, speaking of Captain Marvel, I think that this is very much relevant to our discussion for today. And today I'm going to be reading this article, or at least talking about this article from Variety, where it says, Academy's failure to nominate women directors reinforces the status quo. Yes, Hollywood is a bunch of sexist, and guess what? The Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences, they didn't nominate women because they hate women, and women are oppressed, and a woman not getting nominated for an Oscar is proof positive of male privilege. We can't say white privilege anymore because it's actually kind of diverse this year, but we can still say male privilege. And that's pretty much what's going on here. So basically, once again, because every year this happens, we get the same complaints over and over again. Oh my gosh, no women were nominated for cinematography, for directing, all these things because you're sexist. No, it's just that you have the data for yourself, and you admit the data for yourself in the article, where the facts remain that women make up a very small percentage of directors. Just in the overall pool of people that want to pursue directing, women are very small in that number. Now, could it possibly be that men and women are different and pursue different things, and therefore, on an average, on a whole, you'll find more men are going to be likely going to be putting themselves in a position, or want to be put in a position where they can tell people what to do and frame their vision, and that most women probably wouldn't want to do that? And could you not also say that there's an exception to every rule, which is why you do have a fair amount of very, very talented, good female directors? I think both can be true at the same time. I think that there is definitely a divide between the two. I think that the numbers are different, and I don't think it's just because for a very long time Hollywood was run by men. Obviously, we can admit that fact. We can understand that for a very long time, men were the center of everything. But even with that being the case, we still got strong female performances and strong female characters that were crafted out of those people, which again goes to say that no, you do not have to be a woman in order to make a strong female character on screen. No, you do not have to be written by a woman or directed by a woman to have one of the strongest and one of the best female performances of all time. Like, I'm sorry, like, you might not want to hear that, but that is a fact. The gender of the director or writer usually does not really play that much of a part in how a performance is done on screen. Now, every person, male or female, has a different set of, of skills, has a different set of, oh, I focus on this or that. I mean, any director. There's people that we call actors directors, ones who focus on the performances, who are usually able to get a lot of Oscar nominations out of those performances as well, especially if they're high caliber. You also have the visionary directors as well, again, male or female, who look at the big picture. And at the end of the day, though, their gender is not what determines whether or not they'll be good or not. The fact is that men and women, and yes, Hollywood, you might not want to hear this, but men and women are inherently different. We are different, and therefore being different biologically, chromosomally, even if you want to go that far, means that we're going to have different interests as well. There are things that men, on average, can do better or more efficiently than women. Oh my God, that's sexism! No. I'm using statistics. I'm using facts here. I know that you don't really want to care about facts, but let's just be honest here. On average, I'm not saying everybody, I'm saying on average. Oh my gosh, no, you can't say that. On average, if you were to take just an average male and an average female together, which one is likely going to be stronger, have more muscle mass, be able to become stronger or build muscle mass more quickly? That's right. On average, men, because men and women are biologically different from one another. All right, so now that we've established that, and again, if you're still freaking out in the comments section below saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe you said that, there are differences. If there are biological differences, if there are these chromosomal differences, going so far as to say chromosomal differences, I know as my own strong, independent women behind me, River and Willow, make their very proud voices heard from all. But if that is the case, if we can say chromosomally there is a difference between men and women, cannot we also say that therefore men and women, on average, because of those biological differences, will probably be drawn to different things? In fact, they've done studies on this. Again, sociologists have done studies on this. Psychologists have done studies on this to show that if you take a person, like for example, they've done this with twins. If you take people out of a certain environment, that even if they're grown up in a different environment, there are certain biological effects that they cannot escape. Can we not also say that it's probably the same for women as well? I'm not trying to say, again, that women can't direct. I'm not saying that women should not be directors. What I'm trying to say is that no, just because 5 slots went to 5 men, when the vast majority of directors in Hollywood are men, when the vast majority of major releases are directed by men, and most of that has to do, at least now in today's world, has to do with the fact that men and women pursue different career paths, and there are more men seeking those roles out than women are. I think that we need to at least stop trying to perpetuate this total nonsense, this total identity politics driven nonsense, because basically, Martha Lawson, what you're trying to say here with this, guest column and this title and everything that you're going to be going into, what you're trying to say here is that women should have been nominated because they're women. And then you're pretty sure you're going to be like, oh no, I'm not trying to say that at all. I'm just trying to say that, why are we in a world where it's not, 2, and 1, 2 men, 2 women, and then 1 extra, 1 other, because that's just, the mindset of Hollywood today. But here's just the facts for you. You're choosing 5 names. Just 5. Think of all the movies that get released in any given year, and only 5 names are chosen. And let's say you have a pool of 250 movies. Let's just say that for starters. More likely than not, you're going to see out of that 250, maybe 10 to 20 are directed by women. Again, that's just using statistics and just using my own example here. And so what you're trying to say is that, oh my God, it's sexism, when, again, on the whole, on average, men are more likely to pursue careers in directing. That's just the way things are. Again, that's not just social. Obviously, there are social ramifications, there are social inputs, there are social developments that have led to that, but there's also biological things in there too. Again, go ahead and look these things up for yourself, again, if you don't believe me. And so when you take those into account, those 5 names, it becomes a lot more, no, that makes sense. They didn't get chosen because they were men. They got chosen because their movies were seen to be the best directed films of the year. And being good at directing has nothing to do with gender. Again, being interested in something, now that could easily be determined by gender, but being good at something, obviously, I would say, at least when it comes to directing, because directing is dealing with building a vision, building a world, and guess what? Men and women can both do that. And both can do it very well, because the human mind is an amazing thing. But let's just stop for a second. Let's stop with this nonsense, perpetuating this myth that the only reason why women aren't getting nominated is because women are not being accepted into these roles. I'm sorry, but that's just nonsense. You're not being rejected from becoming a director because you're a woman. It's just that, less women are actually interested in pursuing it in the first place. That is the truth. That is the actual truth of the situation. So stop trying to make this fake outrage. Stop trying to produce this fake problem to this fake issue that just doesn't exist. Now, again, we can talk about how there is indeed a sense of sexism that still exists in the world. Yes, are there men who are sexist? Damn right. There are women who are sexist too. In fact, I would probably argue that there are more female sexists than there are male sexists, because guess what? If you are one of those people that takes a gender studies course in college and then you think that the patriarchy needs to be overturned and that women need to be on top, etc., guess what? That is sexism. You are making judgments and understandings based off of someone's gender. Now, some people say, well, aren't you doing that too by trying to say the biological differences? No, because if a female is directing a movie or writing a movie, I don't care if they're a female. Doesn't matter to me. I look to their prior work. If the prior work sucks, I'm going to call them out. That's why I've been calling out the person who's going to end up, writing Birds of Prey, because she wrote Bumblebee, and I thought Bumblebee sucked. And I thought to myself, why do I not like the writing for Bumblebee? What is wrong with the writing for Bumblebee? I looked to see who the writer was. Happened to be a woman. Happened to be a female. But then I looked to see, okay, what else did she write? Oh, she wrote Unforgettable, which is very forgettable and very bad. So it makes sense that it wasn't well written, because the person writing the movie wasn't a good writer. And it's not because she's a woman. It's because she's just not a good writer. With all this being said, though, the Academy, the Hollywood elites, everyone on stage on the Oscar night is going to come out and say to you, women are mistreated and don't get paid the same. And they'll bring up any and every statistic they can to try and back that up. They'll bring up that nonsense 87 cents on the dollar. Even though if you actually look at the statistic, you understand, oh wait, that's all women in all jobs and occupations, which includes women who choose not to work. Okay, that makes sense then as to why the number isn't going to be directly even. Now, is there discrepancies? Are there people who are being paid more or less because of their gender? Does it still happen at all? Yes. Of course it does. Just like people still make judgments based on race. Does that make it good? Does that mean I'm cheering for it? No. But for you trying to say that it's this huge problem when in reality it's not, and you don't really have any stats to back it up, and the one stat that you do try to bring out constantly over and over again has been debunked countless times, it makes you kind of wonder, okay, so you keep making these things up, so what is real? And that's what causes people to doubt the situation altogether. I mean, it's basically the whole reason why we're in this era of fake news, where even things that are true are now not believed or disbelieved or doubted because of the fact that the media has just kind of just screwed everything up. Because they've made everything just so ridiculous. But when it comes to this, when it comes to the Academy, okay, when it comes to Martha Lawson's thing here, where she's just going after saying, oh my gosh, wham. Just 8% of Helmer's working on the top 250 films of the year. So again, if we're going to talk about how maybe only 10 to 20 out of a given 250 films are directed by women, we need to at least be honest with why that is the case. We need to at least be honest that you cannot just say it's because of sexism. We need to be honest with the fact that there are probably the biggest factor there is biological. You could even say social, saying that, women are more likely to pursue certain jobs and occupations because of the way that they're raised. You could easily say that. That you will have so much more evidence for, and you'll have so much more data for. But instead, you decide to go even further and back it up, or rather mention something that cannot be backed up with anything that's actually real. Again, everyone says 8%. Oh my God, that's awful. To me, it's just realistic. Because let's just say you say, okay, well, 50% are men, 50% are women in any given population. And how can 8%, that doesn't make any sense. Well, when you understand that, yeah, biologically we might have a 50-50 split going on, or something close to a 50-50 split going on in the entire world, or in the entire nation for that matter, if we're just talking about United States directors here, that doesn't mean that, therefore, every single job, every single occupation needs to see that same split. It would be like the same kind of logic to say, oh, you know what? So I'm looking at the NBA right now, and there's a certain race that dominates. There's a certain race that dominates the sport, and I think there needs to be more even. If I were to say that, I would rightly so be laughed out of the building, because I know and everyone else knows that you don't get hired, you don't get chosen to be on a basketball team, a professional basketball team, because of the color of the skin, but rather because of the skills that you have. Now, you can have a conversation saying, well, why is it then that there is such a discrepancy? And then we can get into the social fabric and what's going on in the inner cities, etc. And then we can have the actual conversation. We can have actually, a thoughtful discussion. But they don't want to have that kind of discussion. Instead, they would rather just say 8% sexism in the typical NPC way. Again, blame any and everything other than the actual problem itself. And that's the reason why we're continuing to get nonsense like this. And continuing to be the reason why I'm going after Captain Marvel so much as I am. It's not because I'm angry at the MCU. It's not because I hate women. It's not because I don't want to have a female superhero. And the fact is that we are constantly being pushed. This stuff is constantly being pushed in our faces and down our throats. And we're tired of it. We're tired of being told that we are less than, that we are bad because we happen to be a white male. I'm sorry, I should not be ashamed of the color of my skin or of my gender. I'm sorry, just like you or anyone else, just like a woman or someone who's African American or Asian or whatever, just like they should not be ashamed of the color of their skin or their gender if they're male or female, same way, neither should I. Again, everyone should be treated as human persons for who they are. And yet this liberal agenda, Again, this SJW-driven agenda continues to be pushed down our throats. And we continue to get spreads like this, where it says, Revolution! Talking about a revolution, Marvel's very first female superhero. Like, it's a new concept. Like, we haven't had strong female performances before. Because, go ahead and do some history. Women have been prominent in Hollywood, in the movie industry, for decades and decades at this point. And yes, there were things that were done then that were bad, that were caused by sexism. But to try and say like things are bad as then, or even worse now, and well, we have all this data, when that data just doesn't actually back up the facts, it makes things worse in the long run. And as I've said constantly, and as you'll see when I actually give you my official breakdown of the DCU versus the MCU, this could eventually lead to the MCU continuing, or starting rather, to fall. Now, I won't have any proof of this until we actually get the box office numbers for this movie. But at the end of the day, and as I said to someone in the comments in my last video, in order for this film right here, Captain Marvel, to break even, it needs to make $400 million at the box office, just to break even, when you actually do in the actual math itself. Now, some people would say, oh, it's definitely going to make that much. And I would say, too, because, again, my own range is 450 to 650. But if they keep pushing this agenda, if they keep trying to push this nonsense here, and you have her, especially Brie Larson, continuing to go out and just play the identity politics game, it's going to end up really, really backfiring on them in the long run. But anyway, guys, what are y'all's thoughts on this? Do you think that, that there is a sexism problem, and that's the reason why women weren't nominated, was because when people were filling out their cards, they were saying, you know what, I'm just going to choose all men. Oh, wait, she's a female? No, I'm not going to choose her. Like, honestly, I can't see anyone. I mean, yeah, there might be one or two voters that you could probably point to, because I'm sure there are still at least a few people that think that way, just like in society, there are still people that think that way. But to try and say that it's this huge problem, that's the reason why only 5 men got chosen out of, all the movies that have been made in a given year, and 5 chosen at random, not really at random, but 5 chosen for to be the best happen to be men. I just don't understand. Because also, too, can you name me one female director that directed a film in 2018 whose skill is great enough to bump any of those names that are listed? Because if you can give me one, if you can give me an actual example of someone who deserves one of those spots more so because of the craft of the film, and not just because she happens to be a woman, we can have that conversation. But the problem is that, again, these people don't want to have that conversation. They would rather just say, oh, there's a problem, et cetera, et cetera. But then when as soon as you ask them, oh, who would you put there? Oh, I would put this person. But then you actually look at the movies, you say, well, no, these aren't that good of movies. Oh, you just don't understand because you're one. And then the conversation continues, because then it's, oh, you don't choose women directors because women directors are just so different and you don't understand it. And we need more women to choose these. And again, it's a never-ending story. It's a never-ending agenda. And eventually, it's going to eat itself alive. But guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this in the comments below. If you like this video, smash that like button. Give me a thumbs up. Give me a subscribe. You are all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. And as always, God bless.